Hi scholars. I want to show you how to solve a rational equation. A rational equation is something like what you see here. It's an equation made up of expressions that are rational. Oftentimes it'll involve variables in numerators or denominators of fractions. Okay, and it's forming an algebra equation. Alright, so first let's talk quickly about the strategy for solving one of these guys. Alright, so what we want to do to make this equation easier to solve is eventually get rid of all the denominators. Okay, well, how can we do that? Alright, so to see that, let's look at an example of a simple fraction. So 1/2 plus 1/3, and that's equal to 5/6. I just wrote that down because I just knew that it was equal to 5/6. Now, I want to show you how we can multiply every numerator by some number that will cause the denominators to cancel out. Alright? Okay, so we're going to multiply every numerator here by some number that 2 will go into, 3 will go into, and 6 will go into. So the number we want has to be a multiple of all those, and we're going to use the smallest possible number. Well, here, I bet you can see that we have a factor of 2 and 3 and 6. So 6 is the smallest number that all of these denominators will go evenly into. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to multiply every numerator by 6. Alright, now watch what happens here. 2 goes into 6 3 times, 3 goes into 6 2 times, and 6 goes into 6 1 time. So this whole expression is much simpler now. We just have a 3 times 1 plus 2 times 1, which is 2, equals 1 times 5, which is 5. Alright, so we've taken this complicated expression and we've gotten rid of the fractions and we've reduced it to something much easier to work with. Okay, so that's going to be our goal. That's what we're going to do with this equation right here. So let's first find the quantity that we need to multiply by every single numerator to get the denominators to cancel out. Alright, so we know we're going to want to cancel out an x minus 2. So we know that x minus 2 has to be part of this number. It has to be a factor of the number that we're going to multiply by every numerator. Alright, also we see that we want to cancel out an x. So an x has to be a factor of this number that we multiply by every term. Here we see an x minus 2, but we already have that right here. Right? So that's already included. So this number it's the lowest common denominator of all the fractions. And we're going to multiply every numerator by this number. Now we also need to pause to note that if we were to plug in some certain value of x into this denominator, into this equation, it would cause this fraction to be undefined. Okay? Now you can probably convince yourself that if you plugged a 2 in for x there, you would have 2 over 0, which is undefined. So we know that the value of 2 cannot be a solution to this equation. Okay? Similarly, we can look here and say that if x were 0, we'd have 5 over 0, which is undefined. So 0 also cannot be a solution of this equation. So off to the side here, I'm just going to write to myself x cannot equal 2 and x cannot equal 0. Then at the end of the day, after I've solved this equation, if I find that I get a solution that's either 2 or 0, I'm going to know that I need to throw it out because I know that that cannot be a valid solution. Okay, so let's multiply every numerator by the lowest common denominator of all the fractions. And we're going to see that this will cancel out every single denominator. Alright, so over here on the left, we see that on the numerator we have a term of x minus 2, and on the denominator a term of x minus 2. So those cancel out, leaving us with just x times x, or x squared. Alright, so we have a minus sign, so I'll bring that down. And in this term, I can see that these x's will cancel, leaving me with 5 times x minus 2. On the right hand side, I have a common factor of x minus 2 on numerator and denominator, so those cancel, leaving me with just 2 times x. Alright, so take a look at this equation. Much simpler. There's no fractions, so it's going to be easier to solve. Let's do it. I'm going to distribute the minus 5 to both terms here inside the parentheses. So we'll have x squared minus 5x plus 10 equals 2x. Now we'll just bring the 2x to the left-hand side to put this in standard form, and we'll have x squared minus 7x plus 10 equals 0. Alright, so this guy is a quadratic equation in standard form, and it looks like it may be factorable. So let's try to factor it. Alright, you can probably do on your own and find out that these two numbers here will have to be negative 5 and minus 2. Alright, so what this says is that this equation will be true if x was 5, because this guy would be 0, in which case the product would be 0, or x could be 2, in which case this guy would be 0, and again the whole product would be equal to 0. Alright, so the solutions we found are x could be equal to 5,